Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Starking AM0270. This watch is available from Starking official store on AliExpress for €127. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in this cardboard watch box. One removes the tray from the sleeve, and the watch sits in the base inside a foam cutout panel as one would expect. Although basic, it does suffice in protecting the watch in shipping from any damage, and I think it's perfectly acceptable to use a basic cardboard watch box, bearing in mind this is a low tier price point piece at only €127. With regards to the items, this is the warranty card. The watch is covered by a 12-month warranty. However, it's disappointing there is no owner's instruction manual. I would like to see Starking introduce an owner's instruction manual and detail the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko NH36A automatic. This is the tag that comes to the watch, and on the reverse it has the full reference number of the piece, which is abbreviated to AM0270. One also gets this plastic bracelet resizing tool, and this is used for pushing out the push pins and also pushing them back into the bracelet when resizing, so good to get this included. And lastly, one also gets this Starking branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth, irrespective of the price point of a piece. So, with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the Starking AM0270. We have a 41.6mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 48mm, a thickness of 11.7mm, and a lug width of 22mm. The bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the 2-button push deployment. Now I'm going to be critical of the deployment because, as you can see, it is sterile, it's unsigned. I would like to see Starking either engrave their emblem or alternatively Starking text logo on the clasp, because that would enhance it. But on a positive note, the 2-button push triggers of the deployment have a nice firm resistance, and both halves of the deployment open easily. Flawless mirror polishing to the top side, underside and flanks of the deployment. No sharp edges, no burrs, doesn't have sharp corners and doesn't pull arm hair. Curved profile to it, which wraps around the wrist very well. It's a low profile deployment, and both halves of the deployment snap shut with a nice positive click. It's not going to accidentally deploy. When one presses one of the triggers, one has to press both of the firm triggers in order to get it to deploy. So it works very well, low profile and also well executed. Now with regards to the bracelet, it's very well polished on the top side, and that complements the polishing on the flanks. Push pins are a cost-cutting measure rather than using screw pins, but however one has to appreciate some cost-cutting measures at €127. The underside of the bracelet contrasts with the brushed satin finish. Now, I'm going to be critical of the bracelet because the end links rattle, and also every one of the links has significant play. The links have lateral side-to-side play, up and down play, and also longitudinal play. And the cumulative effect of all the play in every one of the links is that the bracelet rattles when on wrist, and it makes an annoying rattling sound. And also the problem with having gaps in between the links is it does catch arm hair, and therefore it's irritating because it pulls arm hair in the gaps in between the links. So it's clear the tolerances need to be tightened up with the push pins, and that would reduce the amount of play because it's a very sloppy bracelet, as you can see. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a flat sapphire crystal. Now the negative of the flat sapphire crystal is there is no AR coating on the underside, and when I tilt the piece at an oblique angle you can see it's like a mirror. It's highly reflective, and that is compounded by the silver mirror polished applied indices and the silver mirror polished leaf hands. So the hands are highly reflective, as are the mirror polished indices, and as you can see this really does need AR coating. It's a clear cost cutting measure, and I think a step too far. They really should have added clear AR coating, because with mirror polished hands and mirror polished applied indices, it is reflective. Now the hands and also the indices do contrast very well with the matte black dial, and around the circumference we don't have a chaptering, but there is a textured finish to underneath the indices, so that does add interest. Now this is subjective, but personally I think it would look better if it didn't have these jewels, which are meant to look like diamonds at the 12, 9, 6 and 3 position. I think they should have just used full size applied indices as per the other indices. Adding these jewels, which clearly aren't real diamonds, really does cheapen the look of the watch. However, this may appeal to some collectors, and I appreciate my opinion is subjective on this. Some collectors like jewels on watch dials. Personally, I dislike jewels. With regards to the date window, it's nicely framed with a silver mirror polished frame, and we have a day-date complication. So good symmetry to the dial, good legibility despite the lack of the AR coating. Now with regards to the text at 6 o'clock, I really think it's unnecessary to state water resistant 50 metres because this isn't a dive piece, it's clearly meant to be a daily wear piece or alternatively a dress piece, and we don't need to know that it's 50 metres water resistance because you're not going to be taking this diving. I think they should have just put automatic at 6 o'clock and deleted water resistant 50 metres. Now we also have Sapphire Crystal either side of the 6 o'clock index, and again there is no need to state that this has Sapphire Crystal, it really is negligible information. On a daily wear or dress piece, one doesn't need to know it's Sapphire Crystal, it's a given that at this price point it's going to be Sapphire. With regards to the case back, it's a screw down exhibition case back glazed with mineral crystal which provides an effective hermetic seal to 50 metres. Mirror polishing is done to a good standard, engraved to a high standard. The milled slots are also well finished, no sharp edges, no burrs, and it does a good job of displaying the movements, which is the Seiko NH36A automatic. Nice attention to detail because in the centre of the crystal, which is mineral crystal, we have the Star King emblem in gilt. So it's nice to have that metallic gilt emblem, it adds interest to it. And although the NH36A automatic is undecorated and boring to look at, it is nice to have an exhibition case back to look at it through. So very good finishing to the screw down exhibition case back, and I think it's very comfortable because it's perfectly flat against the wrist. These solid end links are a good tight fit to the case, brass satin finish, and they are female pivoted end links, so they do articulate very well. The end link in the bracelet does articulate, although as you can see looking at the inner edge of the end link in the bracelet, it is poorly finished. We can see the machining marks, so there is room for improvement with regards to the quality of the finishing with regards to the end links, and the end links are a good tight fit to the case. They are mirror polished to a good standard, but if you look at the end link in the bracelet, you can see there are marks. I'll just look at the other one closely. As you can see, again, we have machining marks on the end link, so they do articulate well, although they are sloppy. One can feel the play. Lateral side-to-side play, longitudinal and up and down play, and again we have the same play in all the links. So they really need to tighten up the tolerances of the end links and also the bracelet. Right, so I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box, and as you can see there are plenty of links in the bracelet. It easily fits my 8-inch wrist. I can in fact slide an index finger underneath the bracelet and deploy and clasp at all times. So this will actually fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist. Now clearly at 41.6 this is meant to suit collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. If you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you are going to find it has too much wrist presence at 41.6. Although the lug-to-lug measurement is perfect, it is the sweet spot. 48mm is the perfect lug-to-lug. The angular lugs also curve down very quickly, so therefore it does wrap around the wrist very snug, and it is a very low profile piece, bearing in mind it's an automatic, the NH36A, rather than being a quartz or manual wind piece. It's only 11.7mm, so very low profile automatic piece. It will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts, but really at 41.6 you are going to need a 7 to 8 inch wrist in order to be able to cope with the large wrist presence. Now the legibility is poor, as you can see, due to the lack of AR coating. When I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, it's like a mirror. Very reflective flat sapphire crystal, although the flat sapphire crystal is aesthetically pleasing because we do have a bevel which projects above the top edge of the mirror polished bezel. So good looking piece, but it really does need AR coating, and I think it would look better without these jewels at 12, 9, 6 and 3. They should have just used silver mirror polished full size indices as per the other indices. So comfortable piece to wear for long periods of time because it's only 138 grams, and bearing in mind it's 41.6. 138 is very good heft because it does have a solid bracelet. I think they could have improved the comfort of it and also the balance. If it didn't have a 22 to 18 taper, I think they should have used a 20 to 16 because a 20 to 16 works better. Bearing in mind this is meant to be a dress piece or daily wear piece on a 41.6mm head of the piece. Having a 20 to 16 would reduce the heft to below 130 grams and therefore enhance the comfort. With regards to the crown, it's coin edge finished. And as you can see, mirror polished domed cap and engraved with the Star King emblem. It's a push-pull crown which provides an effective hermetic seal to 50 metres of water resistance, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece. So in the closed position, as it's a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown, we can manually wind the NH36A to top it up to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. Feels very similar to the 35A. There's no discernible difference. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up. It's a pleasure to manually wind. It feels smoother than the PT5000, and I really like manually winding the 36A. So pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. Rotating the crown clockwise advances the day complication, as you can see, and it's bilingual both in English and Japanese. And as you can see, Saturday is in blue, Sunday is in red, and the rest of the days of the week are in black, which contrasts very well with the white day wheel. And then rotating the crown the opposite direction, anti-clockwise, advances the quick set date complication, and all the numerals in the date are black, contrasting well with the white date wheel. So the day-date complication works very well. Clockwise is the day, and that clicks over with a nice positive click, and rotating it anti-clockwise advances the day complication again with a nice positive click. No back play in the day-date complication. The 36A is an excellent day-date complication piece. The architecture of the 36A is the same as the 35A. The only difference is the addition of a day wheel. On the 35A it just has the date wheel only, but everything else about the movement is exactly the same. Pulling it out to the final click position is the time setting position. Absolutely silky smooth, clockwise and anti-clockwise, no back play. When one rotates the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's an immediate response. The minute hand moves immediately. There's no back play, and I really like that characteristic. It has less back play than a Miyota 8215, for example. The 36A has hacking. If you look at the second hand, I've now stopped it dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the 36A. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. The second hand begins to sweep around the dial once again. So the push-pull crown works very well. 50 metres is perfectly acceptable. Personally, I would prefer a screw-down crown, although one could argue that one doesn't need a screw-down crown on a daily wear piece because one isn't going to take this diving or swimming, for example, but 50 metres is acceptable. Right, so let's discuss the movement used because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH36A, which is made in Malaysia. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications. It also has a quick set day-date complication, which I've demonstrated. That also works very well. 40-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the 36A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Starking are well regulating the 36As they're using. This one is running consistently at +8 seconds per day. +8 is well within the -20 to +40 stated accuracy, and I think it's perfectly acceptable for an NH36A to run at +8. So reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, accurate, +8 is good enough, 40-hour power reserve, and I like it's got hand winding and hacking. No negatives to the 36A whatsoever. It's one of my favourite movements, and the architecture is the same as the 35A, as I've detailed. They both have 24 joules. And the only difference is the 36A has the day complication added to the date complication. So practical daily wear piece because one has the day and date complication, has hacking, has hand winding, and also automatic. So the correct choice for this piece. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So this is €127. In order to evaluate the piece, one needs to study the quality of the finishing to the bezel, the head of the piece and the bracelet. So credit where credit's due. Looking at the bezel, which is fluted, as you can see, it's mirror polished, the dome's capped to the top edge of it, but then it also has this contrasting fluting, which is angular, and that does add interest. The bezel is very well mirror polished, no sharp edges to it, and it is very aesthetically pleasing. Quality of the polishing to the head of the piece is excellent. The mirror polishing is done very good on the top of the lugs and also the flanks, and there's a nice mirror polished undercut to the head of the piece. No sharp edges, no burrs, and we don't have any sharp corners to the tips of the lugs. So really it's a good quality head of the piece. The screw down exhibition case back is well finished, but it's let down by this abhorrent bracelet which has play in the end links, poorly finished end links, as you can see the machine marks, and it rattles on wrist, and there is too much articulation. It feels very sloppy, although the bracelet links don't kink. They do have an annoying rattle. The deployment is well executed, it snaps shut very well, and also the 2-button push triggers deploy very well. So really there's no need to improve the clasp, they just need to tighten up the tolerances in the rattling bracelet, which is very sloppy. So I would describe this as a good head of the piece on a poor quality bracelet, but overall one has to say the quality of the piece is poor at €127, even though it does use a good movement, the Seiko NH36A. So I'm going to say that the quality of the piece overall is okay, but I'm going to say the value is poor because there are strong opposition. There are credible alternatives to this at €127, and I really think that Starking are pushing it because this doesn't have AR coating, and at €127 it really should have AR coating. Yes, it does have Sapphire Crystal, but I think that even with the NH36A and Sapphire Crystal, to be strong specification, to be excellent quality and excellent value, it needs AR coating, and it certainly needs a better quality bracelet than this abhorrent rattling bracelet, which is very sloppy. This is the kind of bracelet one would expect to see on a €50 piece, not €127. So there's room for improvement needed, and I'm not going to recommend it to you for consideration because of the shortcomings, the lack of AR, and also the poor quality bracelet. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Starking AM0270. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.